How many of you guys have siblings, right? And if you do, you've probably experienced some kind of ridiculous fight with said sibling, right? Yeah, so that's where this story is going to start. A couple weeks ago, Owen and I were driving home from work, and I came to this realization that we were both in the pool teaching swim lessons, and now we both needed to shower. And this doesn't sound like a big deal, but trust me, it is. This isn't the first time this scenario has happened where we need to use the shower at the same time. The last time it happened was I'd gotten home from jiu-jitsu at the same time Owen got home from soccer practice, and I'll give it this, it wasn't an immediate all-out war, but it became one. We were talking with the rest of the family when I made the mistake of announcing that I needed to go take a shower. So Owen sprung up off the couch saying that he needed to take a shower, and he was waiting for something, I don't know. So the race is on. Neither of us bother grabbing an outfit or a towel, okay? That's a later issue. Right now, all that matters is getting to the bathroom first, all right? We race up the stairs. I make it into the doorway first, but Owen comes barreling from the behind. I kid you not, the next 3 minutes consist of us like framing in the doorway, trying to just like get an inch of space to close the door, pushing each other back and forth. And eventually I won because I'm just cool, like, yeah. Yeah, so here I am in the car, and I realize I have a choice to make. I could, knowing it'll cause an argument, try and race to get the first shower, or I could let it go and say, you know what, it's not a big deal. I'll take the next shower, it's not that long. You wanna know what I did? Any guesses? Yeah, I made it a big deal. I parked the car, I raced upstairs, I got in the shower first. But why did I do that, right? Like, if I really wanted to take a shower that very moment, we have a second shower in the house. Like, it was not that serious. And even if I didn't want to use the other shower, I could have waited 10 minutes. Like, it's not that long to wait, and objectively, I take the longer showers. So why do we do these things where we put ourselves first even when there's no real benefit? We do that because putting ourselves first is one of the most natural things we do, right? And if you don't believe me, when was the last time you were in a group photo? When you look at a group photo, who do you look at first? Yourself, right? And when you're deciding whether or not it's a good photo, you look to see if it's a good photo of you. Yeah. Sure, your friend's eyes are closed and someone else is sneezing and there's hair blowing in someone else's face and it's a crazy photo, but you look good, so it's a good photo. Time to post it, right? Putting yourself first is natural. And I can't speak for you, but the world encourages my self-obsession. There's so much rhetoric out there, online especially, that you need to put yourself first all of the time. What's important to me right now? My friend needs a ride to the airport. My neighbor's moving out, and my coworker needs a shift covered. Well, too bad. They're just gonna have to ask somebody else, because this is my time, my me time. I need to focus on me right now. The world tells us we deserve our me time, and that if people expect us to do differently, then they're the problem and we should cut them out. But that's not what God says. In Philippians 2, verse 3, God says this: "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourself, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interest of others." God tells us to do nothing out of selfish motive, but the world tells us to do the exact opposite. We need to put ourselves first. And this sounds great. It sounds good, it sounds great even, but it feels true, but it's not true. There's a common saying you might have heard that says you can't pour from an empty cup. It sounds true, but it gives the wrong message. It says we can't love others until we love ourselves, or that we aren't being selfish, we're just taking care of ourselves, that we should treat ourselves, that we come first. And it's kind of sad how intertwined this message is with our culture, that we as a generation are becoming so obsessed with ourselves. And the Bible says this about self-obsession: "Mark this, there will be terrible times in the last days. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying its power. Now, I don't know if these times God are talking about are here or now, but here or far away, but either way, it's not a good look to be acting like these end times people. A part of that verse that sticks out to me is the part that says they will be lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. How often do you guys prioritize your own comfort over what God is calling you to do? I know I do. I was procrastinating writing this sermon for way longer than I should have because I knew it would be difficult. I knew I would have to sit down and think, and I knew it would be scary coming up here and talking to all of you guys. So I was putting ease and pleasure over what God was calling me to do. I was scrolling on my phone. I was doing whatever I wanted to do because it was easier. And I kept saying, oh, I just need a minute to unwind. Then a minute turned into an hour turned into a day. And it's like a week later, and I'm like, oh no, time is approaching. I got to get on this. But I would just say I was tired and didn't want to do it right now. But whatever excuse I came up with while I was putting this off, it was about me. I was putting myself, my comfort before God. I was doing it because it was easier. I mean, it often is. How often have you felt like what God was asking you to do required you to step out of your comfort zone? In those moments, it's so easy to go, you know what? I can't do this right now. I got to put myself first. Go find somebody else to do it. I got to focus on me. We know that we are created to serve God, to love him, yet we love ourselves instead. We act as though God is here to serve us, not the other way around. And when things don't go the way we want them to, the first one we blame is God. We turn away from him and deny his power. So often we claim to love God when we're really just loving ourselves. It's crazy how, as a generation so obsessed with self-care, prioritizing ourselves and protecting our mental health and doing what's best for us, we have the highest levels of stress, anxiety, and depression. Why is that? Well, maybe our problem isn't that we don't love ourselves enough. Maybe it's because we love ourselves too much. So, what do? We look towards the word of Jesus. When asked what the greatest commandments were, Jesus replied, saying, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength." And the second is this: love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these. The most important thing for us to do as Christians is to love God with all our heart and to love our neighbor how? As ourselves. Now, this is where the miscommunication happens and where people get confused. Some people interpret this and draw the conclusion that God is commanding you to love yourself, that you can't love others until you love yourself. But Jesus never told us to love ourselves. Why? Because loving yourself is not a command, it's an assumption. Because we already do love ourselves. Jesus knows that we put ourselves first, so he doesn't have to tell us to love ourselves because we do so naturally. What Jesus wants us to do is he wants us to love others as naturally, as effortlessly, and thoughtlessly as we love ourselves. When Jesus tells us to love our neighbor as ourselves, it's not because we need to love ourselves first. It's because he assumes we already do. Now, some of you may be thinking, I don't love myself, though. I have insecurities, plenty of things I don't like about myself, so clearly this doesn't apply to me, right? And sometimes I feel the same way. There's days where I feel like I'm so insecure, like I have a harder time finding things I like about myself than things I don't like. But when you think about it, oftentimes the things we don't like about ourselves isn't due to lack of self-love, but an excess of self-obsession. We're thinking so much about ourselves that we become overly critical. It's like when you're looking at a painting for so long that you only see its flaws. You have to look away and focus on something other than you to love yourself. We all want to be disciples of Jesus, right? But how does Jesus tell us to do that? Does he say to be his disciples, we must pamper ourselves, must put ourselves first, must live for ourselves? No. That's what the world tells us to do. Then Jesus said this to his disciples: Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. In modern day, when we read that verse, we read it so casually. Like, okay, sure, yeah, I'll try to be nice. I'll go to Sunday church. I'll read my Bible, easy enough, taking up my cross, doing life diligence. But when Jesus told the disciples to deny themselves and take up their cross, the disciples were probably shocked. That's a crazy thing to ask. The reason they'd be so shocked is they would have been so hyper aware of the most bloody uprising in Jewish history at the time. For context, not even 30 years earlier, the Jews revolted against the Roman Empire due to high taxes. And this didn't end well for them. Hundreds of Jews had died, and the ones who weren't were captured by the Romans. The Roman soldiers told the captured Jews to take up your cross before having them drag their cross through the streets and before being publicly executed in front of their fellow Jews. All of this was to send a message about trying to revolt. That's where the phrase, take up your cross, came from. Furthermore, as a deterrent, the Romans did not allow the bodies to be taken down. Some scholars think that Jesus said these words near a spot where some of the disciples' relatives were killed. So it puts a whole lot more weight on the words, deny themselves and take up their cross. What Jesus is saying here to the disciples is that when you become a follower of Jesus, you don't celebrate or promote yourself, but instead you need to die to yourself. Paul the Apostle, who was once persecuting Christians before he was changed by Jesus, said it like this: I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I now live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. When you've been crucified with Christ, life is no longer about you, your wants, your wishes, your will. Your old self dies with your desires and your sin, and Christ lives in you. It's why we get baptized. It symbolizes our old self dying and rising again to live in Christ. Our desires die with us, and what we focus on what's important, loving God and loving others. So my question to you is this: in what areas of your life are you loving yourself more than loving God and loving others? And what is God telling you to do about it? I'll ask again in different words. Where in your life are you choosing comfort over obedience, self over surrender? And what's one step God might be inviting you to take instead? For me, I know I'm the most selfish with my time. If you don't know, I'm an introvert, and while I enjoy being social and hanging out with people, I also really enjoy my alone time, and I like to maximize my alone time. So, for example, if I have an hour, half hour, a shorter amount of time in between two things I have to do, I won't do anything productive in that time. I'll cave myself in my room and try and watch as many YouTube videos or TikToks or whatever as possible in that time. I won't try to do something productive. I won't try and do something I know I won't finish, like a drawing or something. No, I won't try and do dishes or clean my room or get ready for my next event, much to my mom's dismay. I'll wall myself up in my room and try and get the most out of my alone time. And this feeling that I have of time scarcity carries over to days when I have plenty of time to be productive. When I can do it all, I won't. I procrastinate for hours, and then I get annoyed when someone asks me or talks to me or asks me to do something. Like, I'm busy, can't you see I'm being alone right now? Like, this is very important. And it ties back into the pouring from an empty cup thing. I'll claim that when I'm doing this, I'm just recharging my social battery and that I need to do it, but after a certain point, I'm just being selfish. I'm letting things I'm responsible for go and fall apart because I would rather do something else, because I want to do what I want to do. When I study Jesus, I see that when Jesus went off on his own to recharge, he went to spend time with God, to recenter himself, to pray. If YouTube and Reels and TikTok existed back in the day, I doubt that when Jesus went to go pray in the gardens, that he would scroll for a couple minutes beforehand just so he would get some quick dopamine and then pray. No, he would still give his full attention to God, not divide it with his phone. Jesus didn't call us to promote ourselves, but to humble ourselves. He didn't call us to pamper He didn't call us to pamper ourselves, but to deny ourselves. Not to serve ourselves, but to serve others. Not to put ourselves first, but to put ourselves last. Not to seek our pleasure, but to pursue God's purpose. We are called to be people who follow Jesus, to live not in self-love, self-affirmation, and self-justification, but to live in self-denial. Now, I'm going to call the band up, but I feel like it's important to emphasize that God is not telling you to not take care of yourself, that you shouldn't take time to care for yourself at all. No, he's not saying that you can't take a nap when you get home from work, or that you can't play video games or have a sweet treat or go to the gym. He just wants you to evaluate why you're doing these things. If you need a break to avoid burning out, take one. If you need a nap because you know you get snappy if you don't have an afternoon nap, that's fine. No one's faulting you for catching some Z's. I know for myself that if I go a long period of time without training, I get more easily annoyed, more stressed out, and I'll have trouble focusing. But no, God's not telling you you can't take care of yourself, but it's about motive. If the motive of self-care is only about yourself, then yeah, that's being selfish. But if your motive for self-care is so that you can be mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually healthy, so that you can better love God and not love others, then that self-care isn't selfish. I've tried prioritizing myself and worrying about me first. And all that happened was I got more miserable, more depressed, and more anxious. Our problem isn't that we don't love ourselves enough. Our problem is that we love ourselves too much. We have to realize that you can't love yourself into lasting happiness. It's all short-lived. You can't self-care your way into meaningful relationships because those take sacrifices. And you can't self-love your way to your daily purpose or your inner peace, because self-love will always be about yourself. Self-love will never fill you the way God's love does. All of those things I just listed can only be found with God's love. I have to deny myself, die to myself, and follow Jesus. I have to love the Lord with all my heart, soul, and mind, and love my neighbor the way I love myself. Because God is worthy of my life. His love is what matters. What is love? Love is patient, and love never fails. I want you guys to write down one area of your life where you're loving yourself more than God or others. And what is God telling you to do about it? Throughout the next week, I want you guys to think on this and pray on this and contemplate it and see what steps you need to take. God, thank you so much that your love is so strong and important. Help us to find where in our lives we need to put you first. We need to let ourselves take a step back and let you be the forefront of what we're doing. I know it's hard and it sometimes is uncomfortable and requires us to step out of our comfort zones and do something scary, but that can be so good for us when it's led by you, Lord. Your love is so endless and so powerful, and there's nothing that you can't do. Love you, Lord. Amen.